My HR person contacted me saying, hey, we're going to send the concierge in with your laptop so I can do billable hours while I was in the ER with oxygen trying to live. But they literally called me like 25 times in that, to the point where the doctor in the ER was like, son, if you don't leave this environment, you are not going to make it to your 40th birthday. But if you don't have the time or the family or the memories with it, what is it really worth at the end of the day? It's just numbers adding up in a bank account that means nothing at the end. The first few months of my business, you know how I survived? I survived on getting chicken from Fiesta, local. It was in like a garbage bag, tied. So if you really want to know what the true currency of life is, it's time. Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Andrew Roden, and today in this episode, I'm going to talk about why I walked away from a six-figure salary. I know many people have asked me this countless number of times over the years why I did that, because it sounds crazy, right? You walk away from a high six-figure salary where can buy anything that you wanted to, but one thing that I did not have is time. One thing I realized during this time phrase and when this wake-up call took place was back in 2021. During 2021, I actually was battling COVID. I was in Baylor Scott White in Dallas, Texas for over a week and did not know if I was going to make it out of there. This is when we had one of the stronger forms of COVID. And one of the key factors that I remember from this was my HR person contacted me saying, hey, we're going to send the concierge in with your laptop. I would never think in my life that she was being serious, but she was really serious. I don't even think she even told the president of the firm that. But they literally were going to bring me my laptop so I can do billable hours while I was in the ER with oxygen trying to live. But that was just the first part. That was, I guess, God poking me. You know, sometimes God has to poke you sometimes for you to realize what's going on. The second from that was about a couple of weeks later, my sister, oldest sister, ended up getting COVID. She battled COVID for over a month, and sadly, she passed away in October 2021. It was a very hard time for me, to say the least. And then my aunt passed away 3 weeks after that. But fast forward even from that moment, what really showed me what I needed to own my time was the fact that I was working, I left Big Law and I decided to go work at this small firm. I'm like, small firm, probably a little slower pace, you know, don't have to worry about the big corporate clients that I've been dealing with. Oh, God knows hell. It was hell and back. Hell upside down, inside out, it was hell. And what I mean by that was I was picking up trash, I was sitting at the front desk, you name it, I was doing everything that was not in my job as an attorney. They even had me looking up law on Google. That's when I really knew it was time to go. But no, seriously, I was headed to the ER because it was the most stressful job I've ever had in my life. And they knew I was going to the ER. Like, look, you got to meet with this client in the next, hour. So I'm like, I'm going to the ER. And so I turned my phone, turned it, figured it was done with. But they literally called me like 25 times in that, to the point where the doctor in the ER was like, son, if you don't leave this environment, you are not going to make it to your 40th birthday. That was the wake-up call that I needed right there. And I'll tell you, that is one where you don't take lightly, because this man didn't know me from Adam. But here's the thing, though. What are you willing to own your time with? Are you willing to forever be on the books of time to make somebody else riches? I can tell you, during my time in Big Law, I made my employers millions of dollars. During that time frame, I helped countless numbers of clients get what they needed. But the one thing I didn't have for myself was time. I missed many birthdays. I missed many holidays, because here's the thing. They said, hey, we need you on this case. I'll never forget one time, firm knew I was traveling to Mexico. They're like, make sure you have your phone with you. I'm like, I'm off. They're like, yeah, but if your client calls you, you need to answer it. So here I am in Los Cabos with my cell phone on me. And it never brought me peace. And you have to ask yourself as well, what can bring you peace? Is it worth it at the end of the day? Because yes, it's good to make money, but if you don't have the time or the family or the memories with it, what is it really worth at the end of the day? It's just numbers adding up in a bank account that means nothing at the end. And that was what I realized that I had to do for me. And what I mean do for me was it was a hard place for me to figure out that either I could live in a system that I am just a number, I am just a revenue generator, or I can control my own destiny. And the way I controlled my own destiny was opening my own business. Now, was that an easy process? No. Anybody on YouTube that keep telling you that ownership is easy, they're lying. Just hit stop when you see that and go to the next page. Because at the end of the day, it's a hard process because when I left Big Law and I left that firm, we'll leave that name off here, but when I left that firm and finally chose to go on my own, I actually was gonna step away from law, and not many people know that. I was actually gonna go back in higher ed because those of you may know my background. Prior to me coming to law, I was a college football coach. I was a high school head coach. And that to me at the time was, even though I didn't make much money, especially as a high school head coach, the greatest joy I got was putting over 1,000 kids into college. And so that is the point where I'm saying is you got to find out what's your why. So my why at that point was I need to figure out what would make me happy. And so in that decision of trying to walk away from my law, my mother said, what? Son, you can't leave this. You know how hard it was for you to get this law degree. You know how hard it was and how many obstacles you had to overcome to get that bar exam and to get that bar card in the 3 states that I'm licensed in. Can't leave that. And so I walked in faith. And what I mean by walking in faith was I literally decided one day, okay, let me go ahead and get this LLC. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure it's properly gonna be trademarked, looked up the name and everything. But I went from representing the who's who of America to my first client was an individual that had a dispute with his car company that he wanted to return a car he had just got back from Honda. That was a very humbling moment. It was a humbling moment that I needed though, because one thing it showed me was it was a time that I could use what God blessed me with to really help those that need to be helped. Even if it was just a matter of helping somebody get their car returned back because that Honda dealership tried to do unscrupulous things to this client. Now, was it an easy process? No, it was not. The first few months of my business, you know how I survived? I survived on getting chicken from Fiesta, a local family-owned grocery store in Dallas, Texas. And I'm not talking about a chicken that's properly wrapped. It was in like a garbage bag, tied. You know why? Because the chicken that was either expired or was about to expire. So you literally can get like 10 pounds of chicken for like $4. And so I made chicken soup, baked chicken, fried chicken, chicken dumpling, anything you can have chicken with, I was making it. I was the chicken man all of a sudden. And was that an easy thing? No, it was a humbling experience because if you ever get to check out like my food pages that I do and follow me on Yelp and those types of things, you know I love lobster. So treating myself to a lobster dinner every week went from having fried chicken, baked chicken, any type of chicken you can think of. That's very humbling. I like going out to listen to live music. The only music I listened to was the one on the radio. So I had to make sacrifices. And that sacrifice also didn't mean I just one day stepped down and said, I'm gonna open an office in Uptown Dallas. What that meant was asking my mentee from college to say, hey, can you help me out? Asking a close friend of mine, hey, can you help me out? And they literally answered for the phones for me and did customer service for almost a year until I got my foot stable. And never once did they ask me, say, hey, you need to pay me this and pay me that, because I tried many times. I tried bribing them on giving them like, hey, I'll give you this for your help. They're like, no, because I had 2 people that believed in my mission. I had 2 people that believed that at the end of the day, I was gonna build something that was not only gonna help me, but my family and also future generations, and especially the community. And so when you have people around you like that, that believe in your purpose, you'll be amazed what you can accomplish. Now, going back through that process, once I finally did get a foundation, yes, today I've been blessed to have a great team, web designers, SEO builders, You name it, we have it all now. We have now become one of the top law firms in the entire state of Texas. Did that happen overnight? No, it did not. It took blood, sweat, and tears, but one of the key things I'll say is not the money that's been made from that law firm, it's the ownership of my time. I have not missed one birthday of my parents since I walked away from that. I am now able to celebrate holidays. And in 2023, I did something I had not done since I was in high school, or it may have been middle school. I took my parents on a vacation. We all went together. That's something I can't tell you the last time I did that. I definitely could have never done that in big law. But it goes back to that ownership of my time. I could have sat here and been comfortable, getting those checks that they were giving me, but I was not happy. I was not complete inside. And when you're not complete inside, you're not really truly you. Because one thing ownership does, it empowers you. Empowerment to really love what you're doing, love your life, and appreciate your life. And that is what ownership is for me. And now when it comes to, this structure and everything, right, is when it comes to time, you can't say, hey, I just got a $40,000 a month. I just got an $80,000 a month. Let me go ahead and just go on a shopping spree. No, what that means is you need to take time now and figure out, how did you get that $80,000 a month? And how can you make it $100,000 a month next month? It's from discipline. I know a lot of coaches and people out there talk about mindset. Well, we all wake up and say, hey, we want to do something different and we want to probably be better. But without discipline, you're not going to get there. And that's one of the key factors that I'll say that I have learned through this process, that you got to be disciplined. Because here's the thing, when you are an owner of your business, there is nobody telling you that you have to stay until midnight. There's nobody saying that you have to wake up in the bed in the morning and show up. Because if you don't show up as an owner, your business will fail. And I'll say, from the sacrifices that I've made today, I know that I have been able to bless others. And what I mean by that is, we get a lot of people that say, hey, I want to change the world and all that. But hey, you know what? In order to change the world, you need the finances to do that. And so from what I have dedicated myself to is, there's countless numbers of kids in South Florida, Texas, Virginia that I have taken under my wing to make sure that they have better opportunities than many of the kids that I've coached, and even myself. There were Thanksgivings where I didn't have a Thanksgiving meal. There were times that we struggled as a family. I'm a first-generation immigrant in the United States. Will I say that's an easy thing? It's not. Because you have so many obstacles that you don't realize. But let me go back to the ownership part. When you have ownership in your life of your time, there is nothing that can stop you. The only thing that can stop you in life is you. The only limits we have in life are the ones you get to create or the ones that you accept. So if you really want to know what the true currency of life is, it's time. You can't buy it. You can't take shortcuts. And nobody's ever going to hand you a plate and say, hey, go the time of your life. So with that, don't be afraid to push for greatness. And greatness is only what you perceive it as. It doesn't have to be financial. It doesn't have to be luxurious. And it doesn't even have to be public. Move in silence, move in greatness. God bless you. Take ownership of your time.